Oh Lord, we got Amish in the chat. What's up, man?
Doing all right. Just hanging out. Got a
I'm
lot on my
gonna.
mind.
Oh really? Go ahead.
Just stuff I've been working off and on this paper. Just a thought piece regarding flat Earth.
Nice,
Exploring the concept of models and reification fallacies through the philosophy of mathematics, semiotics.
nice.
I'm
All right,
sure India
lovely.
would probably love it.
Nice, bro.
Nerd. Sounds
Yeah,
like
that's some geek
Japanese.
shit, bro. I'm not gonna lie.
That's some L7 shit there, mate.
But it really it really digs at the heart of what this conversation's all about. We're really dealing with the biggest concept reification fallacy ever. And you can kind of think of semiotics as a field that really seems to be focused on what that is, and how people take signs and symbols and meaning and turn it into reality and then destroy meaning in the process and create a hyper reality. That's kind of exactly what the globe is.
It's kind of absurd. I looked up the etymology of the word mathematics, and it originally means to learn or learn.
Huh.
So it's
Yeah.
it's anything that's learned with called mathematics. Means you don't know it, right? You just learned it. Whatever that means.
I think that could explain why they differentiate arithmetic from mathematics. You know, arithmetic is going through the accounting process of things. And you can learn things mathematically. And so we have signs and symbols that help us do that procedurally. One of the things that's been on my mind is this idea that for the whole globe concept to work with celestial navigation and geodesy, more specifically, I guess like astrogeodesy, astrogeodetics, where you take the stars and use that for surveying stuff on the ground. And all of this relies on this interpretation of starlight being parallel rays, so you can't triangulate it on a globe. And then the globers make fun of us when we show them that the observer-dependent stars on flat Earth can also not be triangulated because the observers call them rays shooting out from your eyes don't intersect in 3D space. That's something you talk about a lot, Indio. So in neither interpretation of the world can you triangulate the height of a star or any luminary above the Earth. And so what the globe does is they take this concept of parallel rays and they take the flat surface that we know and can experience and realize, and they take that away from you. And they put that flat surface way up to where the star is. And the star's got an effectively flat surface. How's that? Well, the star's supposed to be fucking huge compared to a tiny ball curving Earth. And so its relative flatness is the reason for the parallel rays, they say, and how also you can't triangulate its position because of the consequence of parallel rays. So they preserve the geometry. They take a flat surface you can measure and put in a place you can't measure, and then the parallel rays, and they preserve this geometric equivalence between what we can experience and what we don't. So there has to be an adjudication process here. We've got these two interpretations, but one of them can be independently and empirically validated, and that's the flat surface of the Earth, and that's the tiebreaker. That's kind of the concept for the paper that I've been nugging on for a while.
W.
I also produce a model for a flat Earth coordinate system that is completely congruent with globe interpretations of coordinates.
Another W. Nice.
Yeah, that part's done. That part was easy, and you'll know why when you read it.
Is that the one you sent me a while back with the hypersphere?
that's how it started. I originally started off with the idea of so yeah, the hypersphere idea came to me when I was kind of studying the mathematics of the ECEF and ECI coordinate reference systems that satellites use. And I was looking at this and thinking, holy shit, like the local tangent plane square that's on the ball, what they've done is the ball is actually 4 spatial dimensions with a radius that is a common equidistant point to all points on that tangent plane. And the tangent plane repeats itself with a periodicity that you can express with a modulo operation, which I put in an algebraic expression. And the periodicity can correspond to like the circumference of a globe Earth, if that makes any sense. And a modulo just basically does a remainder from how many times you like go around it and wrap around it. And you can think of like the remainders telling you how far you go past the point that you started when you loop. So you create this looping plane that is experienced in a Cartesian way, as we do in reality, X, Y, and Z planar. But in a 4th hyper dimension, the looping is done where the radius and curvature exists in a dimension you can't see. And this is interesting because what they've done for satellites is they create a fictitious absolute frame of reference, point of origin of the Earth. Whether you conceive of it as like underneath or above, it doesn't matter. It's in hyperspace. And that absolute frame of reference serves as a way to keep track of all the assets that are in motion above this call it an XY plane, if you want to use that convention, and Z is the vertical axis. And this was interesting to me because satellites exhibit no rotational vector with ECEF. So as satellites go through an orbital period, they have to maintain down with respect to the Earth, and that's not captured in anything I've ever seen, and not even in their own coordinate reference system. So I'm like, okay, they're obviously operating with a flat concept because they forego any rotation. And so how are they doing this? Well, insert the freaking hypersphere mathematics in a looping world. I don't know if these things actually loop around like this. I don't claim that Earth is like a Pac-Man world, but you can certainly build one that way. So I moved on from that, and because I didn't want to like go Pac-Man Earth with this shit and invoking like Einstein's fucking Minkowski space and metric tensor bullshit, and just kind of keep it more empirical. And so I went with another direction. That's all.
W.
Well, the thing I never understood about the GPS and the ECF coordinates is as soon as you move in either direction, you're off the plane. If you're on a globe, right? If you're on a globe. As soon as you move, you go a freaking millimeter, you're off the plane.
Right. And so you need like a Taylor function, right, to determine how far off the plane you are, where the tangent meets the curve and approaches 0. Yeah, as soon as you move, you go into that weird space in between the tangent and the curve. And so, yeah, I mean,
well, then when you get an update, right? So you can say you got one tick of the GPS, right? You get one message, and a millisecond later you get another message. Is it just recalculating the tangent plane every single time it gets an update? So each individual tick is basically redoing the entire thing all over again?
Dude, that's a good question. I wonder, and these globers, dude, they talk about how GPS is completely open source and everybody understands it. But no, like what they're doing is they're taking ground tracking stations all over the world, and they use azimuth and elevation to track satellites. And they can't track a satellite below a certain elevation angle due to path loss. So, I mean, they're doing like what you do with the freaking Mariner sextant. And then they aggregate this all together, compute coordinates, and calculate this freaking Keplerian orbital elements, and solve for like the mean anomaly and all this shit. And they tell the satellites where they think they should be in this fictitious coordinate system made out of Keplerian orbital elements. And then that shit like computes ECEF out of it and then broadcasts it back down to Earth. And it's like, what the fuck? You have no idea how they're doing all the shit on the back end with updating. And then you're updating like the ephemeris and the almanac and introducing relativity corrections, they say. Nobody has access to any of this shit. So you can't call GPS open source at all. Nobody fucking really understands how the thing actually works.
Yeah, it's definitely a black box.
It is. It is. So yeah, I'm mystified by it. I really am. Also, I know enough to know that people don't really know what they're talking about.
Yeah, there's also, according to Trimble, that makes GPS handsets, right? They say they also do tropospheric refraction corrections.
yeah, right, for communications, right? Because the ionosphere and yeah.
Yeah, but it doesn't say how they do it, because I looked in, I tried to figure out how are they doing this, right? Like, if refraction's doing all this shit, are they doing a refraction correction for GPS? Find out. They claim they are. Okay, let's find out how they do it. It's a dead end. There's nothing to find.
You know, I was going on a tangent earlier in the week and last week on Schuler tuning, another fucking dead end. It only exists in theoretical models and concepts. And this, for the audience listening, this is where they supposedly account for the rotation vector over the curvature of the Earth in inertial navigation systems that use like fiber optic gyros or ring laser gyros, or even mechanical gyros that are high speed. So boats, airplanes, and even satellites. They calculate this, supposedly calculate the Schuler tuning, and then kind of when you look at the whole system, what it's doing is it's calculating the rotation vector to update the graphics on the screen that people are watching of a spherical coordinate reference system, which is like not reality. It's almost like it's like the Coriolis computers that they give snipers who have like globitis and need to feel like that they're doing something to correct for the curvature of the Earth, and it's not really doing shit. So,
we know what the deal is. They're just bad shots, and they're trying to come up with an excuse. It must be because I didn't use Coriolis. That's why I can't hit the target.
Yeah. Yeah, like a bad tennis player's got excuses every day.
Yeah, it's my racket. I need a better racket, man.
Yep. The chat's going crazy.
Yeah, but Schuler tuning's interesting, man. So this guy back like 100 years ago conceived of a way to mathematically account for the curvature of the Earth, regardless of however fast or what direction an object is navigating over it. And so he envisioned a big fat pendulum underneath a moving object that has a length of 3,959 miles and swings, and the swing is determined by gravitational acceleration, and it completes a period every 84.4 minutes. And so you use this constant, and you can correct for your curvature rotation at any point in time that you're navigating, and you're always maintaining conceptual theoretical down with respect to a globe Earth. And so they factor in this calculation into all these modern INS systems. And you start reading, well, how this become popular? Well, Apollo said that they started incorporating Schuler tuning to make their moon mission succeed. And then after that, like Boeing, Honeywell, Rockwell Collins, they're like, fuck, we'll update our INS systems too. If it worked great for Apollo, we'll start putting this in 747s. And so then they started integrating this black box into these systems. And the Schuler tuning mechanism or subcomponent is embedded within the Air Data Inertial Reference Unit, the ADIRU, within the INS. And we've all heard stories about that, like from Globebusters and Taboo Conspiracy, where 777 pilot had his ADIRU unit malfunction while he was on the tarmac. And these technicians, and he was like worried because he thought without it, he'd be thrown way off from his flight plan, because he was relying on negotiating over the curvature of the Earth. And so the technicians didn't have any replacements, and it'd take too long to fix it. And so they said, well, you're just going to have to rely on your own skill as a pilot to get the job done. And he did. And he described that his flight took place without any problems whatsoever. All of his systems were working just fine. It was as if it didn't fucking matter at all. And so he was perplexed, and he said he sat down to research what the hell this unit was, and he kept reaching dead ends with it.
That was the guy that freaking got to the NASA site eventually. Didn't he say? Well,
Yeah.
Was that the same guy who was like, let's just break into it? And they were like, no.
Yeah.
You can't go into it.
National security reasons and all this other shit.
No.
Yep.
Dude, you just open it up and it's just like.
Yeah, it's specifically
dude, it'd be funny if you
yeah.
like a freaking a computer unit to a freaking like 1998 freaking Camaro, or something that just doesn't even do anything. Just some shit they threw in there.
Yeah.
Holy shit!
Oh, that's probably speak and spell inside there or something.
Yeah, it probably does fuck all, or if it does anything.
Oh my god!
The only thing it does useful is update like your little airplane and like snap it to a coordinate reference system. Or maybe like your TomTom GPS might have something, huh?
Well, you mentioned they did it on Apollo. Well, why did they do it in intercontinental ballistic missiles?
Yeah, right. I don't know. I know you have to ask for that one, but if it serves any necessity, it's to reconcile. So what it's doing, what the avionics systems are doing, is they're taking Euclidean measurements of your world. Your attitude indicator, your compass, and everything is all azimuth elevation angles, and it's doing this mathematical conversion to synchronize it to spherical coordinate reference system. I think Schuler tuning might be a necessary component in reconciling, Euclidean world with geodesic world. And it's all to reify the ball, to take the flat real world terrain and map it into a freaking ball. Just like Helmert's 7 steps of transformation or whatever, it does the same kind of thing for geodesy. And that's all this is. So going back to what my paper's about, it's this hyper real world that Globers live in that has no basis in actual reality, which is all based off of, their symbolic representations of the world as a globe thrown at them from birth, causing them to reify everything into existence they believe to be true when it's not. I have to go, guys. I'll be listening later, but I'm pulling into my driveway now. Just had a few minutes. Thanks for letting me ramble.
All right, thanks.
Let's get some W's in the chat.
Thank you.
Facts. Let's get some W's in the chat for Amish.